After calling off the wedding with Robert, we ran into each other at the hospital maternity ward. He was holding hands with his white moonlight, Sarah, their gestures intimate. Seeing the ultrasound report in my hand, Sarah's eyes welled up. Robert frowned, his expression cold. Get rid of it. Don't make a fool of yourself. I gave him a cold look. It's not yours. Later, his voice tight, even if it's not mine, I'll take responsibility. Then David, wrapped in a bath towel, his muscular upper body bare, strolled leisurely from the bathroom. Mr. Miller, my wife and child? You can't just try to take them all, can you? When Robert sent the message calling off the wedding, I was at the hotel, overseeing the setup and finalizing details with the wedding planner. Sarah is back. The engagement is off. I stared at the text messages, my breath caught for a second, frozen in place. The wedding planner's words were close by, but I didn't hear anything clearly. And then? I typed, my hands trembling. Robert replied quickly, without a moment's hesitation. She's been diagnosed with depression and needs to come back for treatment. She can't be stressed. I remembered the provocative messages Sarah had sent last night. As long as I want, you two will never get married. I had thought this time, with both families' relatives informed, Robert wouldn't go along with Sarah's nonsense. But I still underestimated Sarah's importance to him. Suppressing my anger, my fingers flew across the phone screen. When she's recovered, when can we get engaged? I had no intention of arguing with Robert about whether Sarah was actually sick. Even if I exposed Sarah's lies, Robert would just see it as me being unreasonable. He didn't reply again. My message went unanswered. It felt like a bucket of cold water was poured on me. The chill spread from my feet to my fingertips. He was used to avoiding our problems. In his eyes, I would just cool off and come back to him. But this time, I was truly exhausted. I had no more energy to fight Sarah for his love, or to wait for his next wave of guilt and promises. I stopped the hotel staff from setting up and paid the cancellation fee. I sent Robert a message, inform your family and friends. His reply was short and clear, okay. I gave a self-deprecating laugh. Then I deleted Robert from my contacts. Robert and I had been on again, off again for 7 years. Every single time, it was because of Sarah. He loved Sarah but couldn't marry her. He didn't love me but could only marry me. Robert's mother had told me frankly. She didn't look down on the now struggling Collins family. She bore the pressure and acknowledged the engagement because she thought I was reasonably attractive and had the advantage of being Robert's childhood friend. She hoped I could keep Robert in line and drive away the delusional woman around him. I once believed that if I just tried hard enough, if I just stayed by Robert's side, eventually he would change his mind. Sadly, that day never came. My love for Robert had been worn away, little by little. When I returned to the mansion to pack my luggage, Robert wasn't back yet. He was having dinner with Sarah at a restaurant. Sarah's social media post didn't show Robert's face, but it clearly showed the engagement rings on his hand, the rings we had chosen together. I took off the ring on my finger and placed it on the coffee table. After some thought, there was no need to draw his attention to it. I picked up the ring and threw it into the toilet. Just as I reached the door with my suitcase, Robert came in, holding Sarah. Long time no see. I greeted Sarah generously. Sarah seemed startled, looking at Robert awkwardly. I guess she expected me to become hysterical like a shrew whenever I saw her before, easily provoked by a few of her words. My current composed state left her feeling out of place. Robert's gaze fell on the suitcase in my hand. His surprise lasted only a moment before his expression returned to normal. That's good. You can move out for a while. It will be better for Sarah's recovery. Telling his fiancée to move out of their shared home so his white moonlight could recuperate. Robert said something so shameless as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I had loved a man this awful for 7 years. Too lazy to argue with him any further, I pulled my suitcase and left without looking back. As I walked away, I heard Robert say, "Ignore her. She'll come crawling back on her own without you even needing to wave." Sarah whined, "I'm upset." "Aren't you going to comfort me? Why would I ever upset you?" I clenched my stomach, feeling sick, and quickened my pace. I moved back to the apartment I had bought myself. Downstairs was a bustling downtown area. I liked lively places with a sense of life. Robert preferred quiet. He hated this apartment. He particularly disliked my neighbor, David, an heir just like him, born with a silver spoon in his mouth. Robert hated David. Perhaps it was because he both envied David's courage to fight for love and lacked the ability to break ties with his family for love, unlike David. Mr. Peterson was much wilder than Robert. The woman David wanted to marry was a third-tier actress plagued by scandal since she entered the industry. The Peterson family couldn't accept someone from the industry taking the place of an heir's wife. So David was willing to strike out on his own rather than compromise with his family. Compared to Robert, who was always wanting to have it all, I truly admired David, this champion of true love. The night I moved out, Robert uncharacteristically called me. "I'm worried Sarah might be uncomfortable if she sees the things you left behind. Where are you living now? I'll send them over." It was still the same condescending tone. I didn't stop folding my clothes. Holding the phone between my shoulder and ear, I replied casually. "Just throw them away. I don't need them." Silence on the other end for a few seconds, only his heavy breathing audible. A moment later, Robert's voice was full of anger. "Emily, what kind of game are you playing? The engagement is just postponed. Once Sarah is a little more stable." I couldn't listen anymore and cut him off. "Excuse me, Mr. Miller, I'm very busy right now." I hung up and immediately blocked his number. I walked onto the balcony, feeling the night breeze and looking at the sparkling city lights. Leaving Robert turned out to be easier than I thought. The faint sounds of revelry from downstairs broke the brief tranquility. I instinctively leaned out to look. The balcony below was lush with plants. I only saw a pair of pale hands gripping the railing and a bobbing head. Wow! David and that third-tier actress lived downstairs. Those young lovers sure knew how to have fun. Not intending to peek at their amorous activities, I went back inside to continue packing. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. I opened it and froze for a few seconds, seeing who was standing outside. David was here. So who was that downstairs? David's eyes also flashed with surprise. "Sorry, wrong door." He apologized and turned to leave. "I just moved in today. Want to come in for a drink?" I called out to him. How should I put it? I felt a bit sorry for him now. After all, we were both people who had been cheated on, in a sense. David turned back, raising an eyebrow. "Oh, you don't need to avoid me anymore?" Robert disliked David, and naturally disliked me interacting with David. Even though David was a major shareholder in my chain of flower shops, we met very rarely, mostly just when it was time for the year-end dividends. Come to think of it, the reason I was able to reconnect with David and get his investment was partly due to the Miller family's connections. Seeing it that way, the 7 years I spent with Robert weren't entirely wasted. I shrug. We broke up. Broke up again? David's lips curved into a smirk, clearly enjoying my misfortune. He walked in and lounged on the sofa, his long legs resting on my coffee table. His casual, laid-back demeanor was completely unlike the cool, dignified air I'd seen before. I chose a bottle of fine red wine from the wine cabinet. This time, we called off the wedding. I handed the wine glass to David, my expression calm. He swirled the glass, unable to hide his amusement. "Wow, this is expensive wine. Looks like you were really hurt this time. Want me to drown your sorrows with you?" If he hadn't knocked on the wrong door, he'd be hurting even more. I nodded. "It is expensive. You gave it to me last year when you got drunk at the annual party. It was a vintage bottle. I couldn't take it back to Robert's mansion then, so I'd kept it in the wine cabinet in this apartment. Now, it was sort of returning to its rightful owner." David's pupils flickered, then he tilted his head back and drained the glass. "Never mind. Consider it a celebration of your escape from misery." I raised my glass. "To you too. May you find true love soon." Being cheated on isn't something a man wants to hear about from anyone else, let alone an acquaintance of the opposite sex. Unfortunately, despite my subtle hint, David didn't catch the meaning. He smiled, his charming eyes seemed capable of captivating anyone, but in this regard, he was blind. My true love is right here. That line should be for you. But thinking about it, wasn't I just as blind? David broke ties with his family for that actress. My heart had been broken into 1,000 pieces by Robert. Wine entered my system more than I realized, and the red wine had a strong kick. Before I knew it, I was completely drunk. I clung to David, crying and laughing, cursing Robert, then cursing myself. David pushed me away, his tone mocking. If Mr. Miller finds out you were hugging another man, I doubt he'd want you back. Even if you begged. Remembering how I had always been the one to humbly seek reconciliation over the past 7 years, I used my drunken state to vent years of grievances. This time, I don't want Robert Miller. Even if he comes begging on his knees, I'm not going back. Really? David's gaze was intense. Lying drunk on the sofa, I didn't see the starlight in his eyes. I just mumbled back, more real than pearls. Somewhere between dreaming and waking, a warm sensation covered my lips. A tingling touch spread across my body. I instinctively responded to this burning passion. When my consciousness cleared, it was already noon the next day. My whole body felt sore, as if I'd been run over. I looked at the clothes scattered on the floor, tangled together. Then I saw the naked man beside me was David. His long eyelashes were lowered, deeply asleep. There were still a few ambiguous hickeys on his muscular chest. I faintly remembered the events of last night. My mind exploded. I had a drunken hookup with David? Regardless of what his girlfriend did yesterday, they were still together. What was I any different from her now? If news got out that I'd interfered in their relationship, people's condemnation alone could drown me. I held my breath and carefully moved the hand David had wrapped around my waist. Like a thief, I tiptoed into my clothes, grabbed my phone, and fled the apartment as fast as I could. It wasn't until I floored the gas pedal all the way to the office that I finally let out a sigh of relief. I hoped David would wake up and choose to forget the absurdity of last night, just like I did. Ms. Collins, Mr. Miller is waiting in your office. He just threw a fit. My secretary's eyes were timid. It seemed Robert had vented quite a bit of anger on her too. I entered my office. Robert was leaning against the desk with his arms crossed, my suitcase beside him. Seeing me, he spoke with a cold face. Emily, you're getting bold, even blocking my number. Br. These are some things you left behind. You can move back after Sarah's condition improves. I gave a self-deprecating laugh and replied, the wedding is off, why keep each other's numbers? Please block me too, Mr. Miller. Robert's eyes widened for a moment, then he became impatient. What kind of game are you playing now? I told you long ago, don't even think about comparing yourself to Sarah. In my heart, she will always come first. If you want to secure your place as Mrs. Miller, then stay in line. I couldn't help but interrupt him. Mr. Miller, was I not clear enough? We've called off the wedding. Who comes first in your heart has nothing to do with me. Do you understand? I asked him, enunciating every word. He was stunned for a moment, his gaze meeting my indifferent one. For the first time, Robert became enraged in front of me, losing all semblance of composure. Veins bulged on his neck, and he pointed at me, shouting, Emily! If you want to play hard to get, I don't have time to play along. I'm giving you this one chance. Either you cooperate with Sarah's treatment and we get engaged after she recovers, or you never appear in front of me again. I calmly picked up the documents he had thrown earlier. As long as Mr. Miller stops showing up here and acting crazy, I promise we'll never see each other again. He was so used to being indulged by me, he couldn't handle such disdain and coldness. Robert slammed the door shut, leaving only a biting remark, don't come begging for pity like a dog again. I'm tired of seeing you plead. My heart ached with a dense, prickling pain, like being stuck by needles. Even if I no longer loved him, after dedicating 7 years of my youth, holding out my sincere heart only to have it trampled upon still hurt. I didn't have much time for self-pity. David's calls and messages started bombarding me. Slut! Eat and run. Is this how you treat your investor? Was last night not satisfactory? You have 3 minutes. If you don't call me back, I'm coming to your office. I looked at David's text messages, my heart pounding uncontrollably. Shocked and scared, I panicked and simply turned off my phone. Though I wasn't the one who initiated things last night, I hadn't exactly refused either. David had always been fearless, afraid of nothing. I was different. My career was just starting, and I had too many things to consider. I couldn't afford to provoke him, so I could only hide. I booked the fastest flight to Paris. The visa I'd gotten was originally for a honeymoon with Robert. Now, it would be used to avoid romantic trouble. I hid in Paris for over a month. Besides sightseeing, eating, shopping, and visiting flower shops, I obsessively searched for entertainment news from back home. I was afraid of seeing news about David and Chloe breaking up. Regardless of the reason, it wouldn't be good for me. It wasn't until the paparazzi broke the news that Chloe and the Peterson family heir were seen shopping for jewelry together, seemingly on the verge of marriage, and Chloe's dream of marrying into wealth came true. Although the photos were taken from a candid angle, you could clearly see them choosing engagement rings. The stone hanging over my heart finally dropped, and I booked a flight back home. Lately, I'd been suffering from poor appetite and listlessness. The day after I returned, I went to the hospital. After a series of tests, the doctor's words hit me like a thunderbolt. You're 4 weeks pregnant. Do you want to keep the baby? I felt dizzy, my ears ringing. Holding the ultrasound report, I didn't even know when I left the examination room. Every step felt like I was walking on cotton. I distinctly remembered taking a birth control pill the day I flew to Paris. Emily? A familiar voice called out. I looked in the direction of the sound and saw Robert and Sarah, their fingers interlocked, acting intimately. Sarah came forward enthusiastically to greet me. Emily, are you feeling unwell? Why are you at the hospital alone? I told Robert the first could come by myself, but he insisted on coming with me. The old Sarah was like this too. A gentle tone, casual passive-aggressive remarks were enough to make me lose control of my emotions. Now that I no longer loved Robert, my emotions didn't fluctuate. I just found her annoying. My sister is so fragile and helpless, I suppose Mr. Miller still needs to help her pee at home, huh? One sentence ended the battle. Sarah's eyes turned red. Her gaze locked onto the ultrasound report in my hand. You're pregnant? Shiny tears rolled down Sarah's pale little face. Robert, who had been silently standing by, stepped in front of Sarah. He frowned, his expression cold. Get rid of it. Don't make a fool of yourself. I gave him a cold look. It's not yours. Robert's face darkened, his eyes swirling with ink-like intensity. I wasn't in the mood to analyze Robert's emotions. I walked around them and left. As I reached the hospital parking lot, Robert caught my wrist, having quickly caught up. I was afraid of upsetting Sarah just now. Keep the baby. I'll pretend the past is water under the bridge. He spoke as if everything was decided, his condescending tone laughable. Mr. Miller, are you incapable of understanding plain English? The baby isn't yours. I shook off Robert's hand, too lazy to waste more words on him. Not mine? Are you saying you have another man? Robert's smile was subtle, his tone dismissive. He wouldn't believe I could be pregnant with another man's child. My boundless tolerance and concession in our relationship over the years were the source of Robert's confidence and superiority. Breaking that today with my own hands somehow gave me a sense of perverse satisfaction. Mr. Miller, you're 4 weeks pregnant. Calculate the timing. Is the baby yours? I asked him with a cold smile, holding the ultrasound report up to his face. The moment he the report, Robert's smile froze. He snatched the paper, staring at it repeatedly, his face contorted with rage. He tore the ultrasound report into shreds. He demanded angrily, "Whose baby is it?" Emily, you actually dared to see other men behind my back. When did this happen? How long have you been with him? The sudden shock of being cheated on threw Robert into disarray. He yelled and shouted at me in the parking lot. After all, in his eyes, I was a spineless he couldn't get rid of. Even if that night with David happened after we called off the wedding, it was still a betrayal of loyalty to him, the ultimate act of being cheated on. I replied calmly, not long, but long enough to outweigh my 7 years with you. Now I finally know what it feels like to be loved. Utterly blissful. Because I had loved him, I knew exactly how to stab him where it hurt. I said the last 4 words casually, effortlessly. Robert's face instantly turned ashen. He had never been so visibly shaken in front of me. He just stood there, stunned. He didn't come back to his senses until my car had driven away. Watching Robert's forlorn figure in the rearview mirror, I didn't feel excited or sad anymore. I just felt an empty space inside. 7 years of feelings had come to a complete end. The taste was indescribable. Just as I drove out of the parking lot, my car was forced to stop by a supercar. David got out and strode towards me. He leaned down and opened the driver's seat door. His tall figure exuded a strong sense of pressure. His face was cold, and he said in a deep voice, "It's not his." "So it's mine? Running away with the baby? Emily, you're really playing games." David knew? I suppressed my guilt and turned the tables on him. "Were you following me? How else would he know about my conversation with Robert? I followed you to Paris for a month. You're just finding out now? How did you know I went to Paris?" David sighed and Patty. "NTLY explained to me, you asked your secretary to book flights and hotels. As a company shareholder, is it hard for me to find out the schedule of the person in charge of the company?" Finally, his tone was affectionate. "I'm actually a little worried about our child's intelligence." Meeting his burning gaze, my heart skipped a beat. I had never experienced this kind of wonderful tension in 7 years with Robert. The honking from the cars stuck behind me was deafening. It conveniently masked my panic. "Are you moving or not? It's green. If you want to make out, go home." "Are we part of your play?" The driver behind us rolled down his window and yelled. My ears were burning red, and my heart was pounding. "Can you move your car so we can go home and talk?" David deliberately misinterpreted my meaning. "Okay, then let's go home and talk." He emphasized the word home, his tone extremely ambiguous. I instinctively started avoiding his direct gaze. While I wasn't paying attention, he lightly kissed my cheek. By the time I came back to my senses, he was already back in the driver's seat. His series of bold moves left me feeling adrift all the way home. I unconsciously followed his car back to the apartment. But what was done, hiding was useless now. David and I needed to sit down and talk this through. Once home, I got straight to the point. "This child is an accident. I'm going to the hospital tomorrow to arrange." An arm wrapped around my waist, and David pulled me into an embrace from behind. His hot breath was against my ear. My body stiffened, and the words I was about to say caught in my throat. "How could you be so heartless? You avoided me for over a month, and now you're back and want to get rid of our child." I broke free from his embrace. I pushed against his chest with my palms, maintaining an arm's length distance between us so I could talk to him normally. "Mr. Peterson, you broke ties with your family for Chloe. To be honest, I was moved by your love. So I can't bring myself to ruin your relationship. This child is mine. I have the right to decide whether to keep it or not. Please forget that night and go get married." David's lips curved into a playful smile. He moved my hand to his abdomen. "My abs are better trained now. You can touch them here." Even through the fabric, I could feel his body heat and his sculpted, firm muscles. My ears were burning hot. I tried to pull my hand away, but he held it tightly. "Who told you Chloe and I are getting married? Didn't you go choose? If Chloe and I hadn't put on that act, would you have been willing to come back from Paris?" I was even more confused. Why would Chloe agree to act with you to trick me into coming back? Had he discovered Chloe cheated on him? Had they broken up? Why wouldn't she? Chloe and I have always had a pure, platonic friendship from the start. David called Chloe right in front of me. Through the phone, I heard Chloe's husky, seductive voice, mixed with faint panting. I couldn't imagine what she was doing right now, but the memories of that intoxicating night inexplicably came back to my mind. Did you succeed in chasing your wife? You have no idea how much that news report affected my ability to flirt with young studs. David's voice was lazy. Victory is in sight. Say hello to each other. The phone was unexpectedly brought to my lips. I somehow said hello to Chloe. Emily, I've heard a lot about you. Let's grab a drink sometime. I can introduce you to some hot studs. I mumbled an absent-minded okay. David immediately hung up. Touching my abs and still thinking about young studs? I pulled my hand away as if electrocuted, my heart starting to pound uncontrollably. I avoided David's burning gaze and sat on the sofa. Chasing your wife? What is this about? I tried to keep my voice steady. I didn't have many memories of interacting with David. We had never dated, never even flirted. Where did this chasing your wife come from? He pulled a chair and sat across from me, his eyes fixed on my face. You married me 18 years ago. Then you abandoned me and got together with Robert. What I'm doing now, isn't that chasing my wife? 18 years ago? Such a distant memory. Back then, I was still a little princess cherished by her parents. Back then, David was mature beyond his years, not like this laid-back person he was now. Back then, Robert never looked down on me with that condescending gaze. And what David meant by married him? It was just an 8-year-old me playing house. I had argued with Robert and, in a fit of pique, pulled David to be the groom. That same year, when I was 8, my father's business went bankrupt, and our whole family moved out of the mansion neighborhood. I lost touch with Robert and David. 7 years later, I reappeared in their lives to raise money for my seriously ill father's expensive surgery. I wore a washed-out dress, enduring the humiliation of asking the Miller family for help. Robert and I had an engagement arranged by our grandfathers, who were close friends. I didn't expect the Miller family to honor the engagement. I only hoped they would help out of consideration for the past friendship between our families, especially since both grandfathers who arranged the engagement had passed away, making the engagement little more than a verbal joke. I didn't expect the Miller family to help out and also acknowledge the engagement. Robert and I naturally started dating. Until my junior year of college. Robert, who always visited me on Saturdays, became unreachable. I then learned that the Miller family had an adopted daughter named Sarah, the orphaned daughter of Uncle Miller's first love. Despite Mrs. Miller's objections, Uncle Miller insisted on adopting her. In Mrs. Miller's words, Sarah and her mother were both manipulative vixens who used their feigned helplessness to ensnare men. These past 7 years have proven Mrs. Miller right. Sarah was adopted into the Miller family when she was 15, the age when a girl's heart begins to awaken. Robert was not interested in romance then and treated her only as a beloved younger sister. But Mrs. Miller noticed Sarah's unusual feelings and sent her abroad before she even graduated high school. Sarah often used being alone and scared overseas as an excuse to video call and chat with Robert. It wasn't until I appeared that Sarah noticed Robert's coolness towards her. Robert also honestly told Sarah about my relationship with him. From then on, Sarah's helpless act began. She would attract Robert's attention with various excuses, like being followed by strangers or being bullied by her classmates. Until my junior year. Sarah, failing to win Robert's love, attempted suicide. Robert bought a plane ticket and flew there without even informing me. I imagine when a frail Sarah, lying in a hospital bed, poured out her unspoken love for Robert, he must have been shocked and moved. Since he returned, I could clearly feel Robert's heart wavering between Sarah and me. I admit I was incapable, lacking Sarah's scheming and tactics. Robert's emotional balance eventually tilted towards Sarah. Perhaps the emotional drain of the love triangle with Robert and Sarah was too consuming. I never even noticed David's intense affection. I overlooked the redness in David's eyes when we met again after 18 years. I also overlooked David's lonely figure when I walked side by side with Robert on the same campus. I didn't even know that while Robert hurt me again and again, David had already secretly decided to win me back. David wanted to marry me into the Peterson family. My engagement to Robert was a hurdle. So 4 years ago, he and the free-spirited Chloe hit it off. He invested in Chloe and protected her, freeing her from harassment by lecherous producers so she could freely flirt with young studs. Chloe's Vari. Us antics helped lower the barrier for him entering the Peterson family. David explained that Chloe marrying into the Peterson family would be like setting the roof on fire, while me marrying into the Peterson family would be like opening a skylight in the roof. By comparison, his mother would definitely welcome me with a smile. This was his plan, for years in the making. Of course, striking out on his own was also a pleasant surprise. Even if I didn't marry into the Peterson family, his own business was more than enough to provide for me comfortably for life. In that moment, I think I understood how Robert felt. Because of one game of house 18 years ago, he's liked me all this time? He truly was the champion of true love I secretly admired. I didn't understand it, but I was thoroughly shocked. We were only 8 back then, David. Weren't you a little too precocious? He corrected me matter-of-factly, you were 8. I was 10. I pulled my hand away from his grip. How could you be so sure I'd break up with Robert? And how could you be sure I'd get together with you after calling off the wedding? His lips curved, smiling meaningfully. Of course I was confident. After all, I put in a lot of effort to make you utterly blissful. He emphasized the words utterly blissful and deliberately stood up, showing off his abs and chest like a peacock. My eyes burned, and my mind became a mess. I couldn't help but remember the several passionate encounters from that night. David, please go back. I need some time alone. I pulled the door open to send him away. The information overload today was too much to process at once. David's hand, which was lifting his shirt, froze. His handsome, deep-set eyes were heavy, and his pathetic, wronged expression was unexpectedly unsettling. Isn't keeping me overnight? It must mean I haven't trained hard enough. I'll go back to working out. He left the door and turned back, his smile gone, his gaze fixed on my lower abdomen with a serious look. He was about to speak, but I cut him off. Give me 3 days to think. Don't contact me during these 3 days. David was a man of his word. He really didn't contact me for those 3 days. But he was everywhere. He would show off his body and abs on social media. He would stroll slowly past me in the downtown area downstairs, wearing a suit and pushing a shopping cart. I finally understood the intention behind David's precise 3-point shots every time I walked past the basketball court in college. It turns out, liking someone makes them this vibrant. I even started to think David would make an interesting and good father. On the 3rd day, I went to the hospital. The moment I heard the fetal heartbeat, I found my answer. Carrying bags of groceries back to the apartment, I saw Sarah from a distance. Her hair was disheveled, and she was still wearing slippers. Lost and desperate, she stopped my car, speaking to me, messy yet stubborn. Where's Robert? Where have you hidden him? I rolled down the car window and coldly retorted, why would I hide trash I don't want? Sarah froze for a moment, then pointed at me, yelling without any regard for her image. Ever since I ran into you at the hospital that day, Robert has disappeared and turned off his phone. He never ignores me like this. You're so low as to use a child to trap Robert, and yet you're pretending to be calm and detached here? Do you really think Robert loves you? To him, you're just a baby-making machine. Sarah, hysterical like a shrew, had lost all traces of her sweet and innocent persona. I suddenly found it a little amusing. Was this what they called karma? For the past 7 years, whenever Sarah returned to the country, Robert would disappear for a while. And every time I went looking for him, she would laugh and mock me. Coming to the hotel where your love rival is staying to find your boyfriend, Miss Collins, you really are like a turtle, so pat. I ain't. I thought about how proud she must have been back then, and how humiliated she must feel now. Sarah had plenty of tricks to force Robert to show up, cutting her wrist, threatening to jump off a building, and now she had depression as leverage. She must have used all her tricks, and Robert still hadn't appeared, which was why she was so emotionally unstable. I sat in the car, quietly watching her throw a fit. When she finally caught her breath, I spoke calmly. Robert isn't here, and the baby isn't his. I'm not like Miss Sarah. I don't stoop to interfering in other people's relationships, and I certainly don't have a habit of taking back garbage. Sarah froze, her face pale. She mumbled repeatedly, impossible. Impossible. Robert loves me. You must have lied to him that you're pregnant with his child, and that's why he abandoned me. I ignored her and started the car, driving away. I didn't let Sarah's appearance disturb my peace of mind. Back at the apartment, I eagerly searched for prenatal education videos to watch. My previously dull life had suddenly become vibrant with anticipation. That night, I had a strange but beautiful dream. I held the baby and had a wedding with David. After the wedding, my husband and I were deeply in love, and the child was well behaved and smart. The beautiful dream was abruptly interrupted by rhythmic knocking on the door. Half asleep, I opened the door. It was David, leaning against the doorframe, striking poses. He was naked from the waist up, a bath towel perfectly showcasing his eye-catching abs. In my dream, David was also very enthusiastic about showing off his abs, even performing cracking walnuts with his abs and opening a bottle with his abs. Drowsily, I called out, "Honey, you're back." "What did you call me?" David's sudden loud voice startled me awake from my daze. When I came to my senses and met his burning gaze, my face instantly flushed, and my heart pounded. That night, I came up with countless clumsy lies to explain why I accidentally called David honey. He still clung to me like a koala, refusing to let go. I finally gave in. As long as he was willing to perform opening a bottle with his abs, I would admit that I had indeed called him honey. Later, it was hard to find any beer with a bottle cap in the apartment. The way people connect is truly amazing. I was with Robert for 7 years, yet there was always an inexplicable sense of distance between us. But after dating David for just 7 days, we had the ease of a couple who had been together for years. I wasn't afraid to appear before him in any clothes or state, nor did I have to overthink which jokes would cross a line. Approaching 30, I experienced the feeling of being in love for the first time. On the morning Robert came to the apartment, David and I were just about to go get our marriage license. In just over 10 days, he had lost weight, his suit hung loosely, and his eye sockets were hollow. His usually perfectly styled hair was messy, hanging over his forehead. His eyes were red, and he spoke in a hoarse voice, "I lost. I love you more than I thought. These past few days, I've been sleepless every night. When I close my eyes, all I see is you. So, whether it's Sarah or that man, let's forget about all of them. Come back, let's start over." The depth of emotion in Robert's eyes seemed to overflow. He raised his hand to touch my face, but I stepped back, avoiding him. I was somewhat disoriented. Had I not been clear that day, or had Robert developed amnesia? He knew I was pregnant with another man's child, and he still came to beg for me back. I thought I made it very clear to Mr. Miller that the child I'm carrying is not yours. Robert's breathing became heavy at my words, and his fists clenched. His tone was tight. "Even if it's not mine, I'll take responsibility." I almost thought I misheard. Robert, so proud, was actually willing to claim another man's child. "I'm serious. If you're willing to keep the baby, I'll raise it as my own. If you're not, I'll go to the hospital." Robert's words were cut off before he finished. "Mr. Miller, my wife and child? You can't just try to take them all, can you?" David, wrapped in a bath towel, strolled leisurely from the bathroom. As if to assert his claim, David wrapped an arm around me. "David?" Robert's face showed surprise, his brow furrowed. David nodded, a proud smile playing on his lips. The champion of true love, who waited patiently for over a decade and struck when the time was right. "That would be me, David." Robert froze for a full 10 seconds, his eyes filled with complex emotions. A moment later, he regained his composure and looked at David with a challenging expression. "Loved me for 7 years, no, more than 7 years. She liked me since she was a child. You just took advantage when she was vulnerable. Without this child, she wouldn't have left me. Even if she chose you on a whim today, she can't possibly truly love you. David, even if you marry Emily, you'll always be my defeated rival." He had always taken advantage of my love for him, allowing Sarah to trample on me. Now, he was using my past sincere feelings to provoke David. If this barb were to take root in David's heart, David and I would eventually become emotionally distant. Mr. Miller. David released the arm he had around my waist. The next second, David's large hand rested on my lower abdomen. This is what I call my leverage comes from the baby. This is my honor, my medal. Without him, where would David be today? David spoke with passive-aggressive remarks, his smile growing even more triumphant. The more he smiled, the darker Robert's face became. His angry gaze shifted between me and David. Emily, don't regret this. Robert forced himself to stay calm and turned to leave. Wait a minute, I called out to Robert. He turned back, his eyes full of hope. I took a step towards Robert, but David's hand gripped mine tightly. His eyes were full of grievance, looking at me pitifully. I smiled and patted his hand gently to reassure him. I have something to say to him. Only then did he reluctantly let go and turn back into the apartment. Walking up to Robert, I held out my hand. I bought the ring. Give it back to me. Robert was still wearing the engagement ring I had picked out on his middle finger. I didn't want any further entanglement with him, and certainly didn't want to leave him with something to remember me by. Robert's eyes dimmed little by little. There was still a glimmer of hope in his forlorn gaze. Emily, I don't believe you chose him because you truly fell in love with him. Can falling in love be that easy? I lowered my eyes and mumbled in repetition, falling in love. I didn't expect it to be this easy either. These past few days with David, I've been truly happy. Robert, I haven't thought of you even once. I looked up at him, my gaze firm. I genuinely don't love you anymore. And I genuinely like David now. The Miller family has been kind to my family, Robert. I don't want to make this any uglier. Let's part on good terms. Robert's eyes instantly turned red. He stared at the silver ring for a long time, a bitter smile on his face. It seems I really lost you. Robert slowly took off the ring and placed the still warm metal in my palm. His voice was full of longing, if only the engagement hadn't been called off back then. I cut Robert off. There are no ifs. Everything is for the best. With that, I turned and walked straight back into the apartment, leaving Robert with a decisive back. Back inside, I saw David with a smile he couldn't hide playing on his lips. I heard everything you said. So, you chose to marry me, not because of my leverage comes from the baby? I no longer wanted to hide it. I stood on tiptoe and wrapped my arms around his neck. No. And the reason I called you honey that night was because I dreamt we got married. So, honey, when are we having the wedding? I don't want to get married while holding a baby like in the dream. Finally, I saw the starlight shimmering in David's eyes. He was so excited he couldn't speak, just leaned down and kissed me repeatedly. Love bloomed fiercely between his lips. We'll have the wedding this month. He kissed me, his eyes glazed, mumbling, when is this little guy finally due? The day David and I went to the Peterson family with our marriage license, Chloe announced her relationship with a young stud on social media. She also mentioned David, thanking him for his support along the way and saying they had a great collaboration. She also congratulated him on finally winning the girl. Mrs. Peterson was both angry and amused by the news, angry that he caused such a scandal dating an actress, and amused that he wasn't actually going to marry her. Mr. Peterson Sr., on the other hand, sternly reprimanded David, saying that if he put the same effort into the company as he did into finding a wife, he could have retired long ago and traveled the world with his wife. Just as David had anticipated, his parents were very pleased with their daughter-in-law. After learning about little David's existence, they immediately started planning their retirement and travel itinerary with their future grandchild. David and I had a smooth wedding. There was only one small hiccup that day. Sarah climbed onto the rooftop of the building across from the hotel to force Robert to show up for her. Unfortunately, the wedding ended, and Robert never appeared. Sarah's legs gave out from standing on the rooftop for so long, and valuing her life, she climbed down herself without anyone needing to persuade her. David smirked, his tone triumphant. Not everyone has the ability to rise up thanks to their leverage comes from the baby. On our wedding night, David was working out in the gym. looking worried. I asked him, "Why aren't you smiling?" He replied that he was preparing for a big laugh 1 year from now.